What's up guys, Kyle here again, and today we're checking out Marshall's most infamous flagship amp, the JCM 900 high gain dual reverb. Let's do it! I don't know what any of that was. Hope you guys are doing great out there today. If this is your first time here at my channel, my name is Kyle, and what I do is I take awesome high gain amplifiers, overdrives, guitars, cabs, speakers, pickups. I record them with a simple SM57 setup, and I give you the unprocessed audio on your end. So if you're into E-standard thrash riffs, drop C hardcore riffs, and dudes that wear the same shirt 2 days in a row, you're in the right place. Consider hitting the like button on the way out and subscribing so you don't miss anything else. Thanks. All right guys, so today on deck, I have been meaning to do this video for quite some time, and in fact, I've already recorded it twice, but somehow the first time I lost the audio, and the second time, the hard drive that I stored it on got corrupted. So here we are, third time's a charm. So this thing is about to go out the door to my friend Casey at Steampunk Audio Labs. So it's time to do that third and final demo. Hopefully, good God. But as I mentioned in the very beginning of this video, this is kind of like Marshall's bastard child or redheaded stepchild or whatever demeaning way that you want to put it, of their flagship line of amps that goes all the way back to the 60s when they started making amps. This has really been the only amp out of the entire lineup that has been kind of universally panned by most people. And I gotta be honest, I do understand why people coming from something like, say, a JMP 2203 to this amp are not gonna like it, because it definitely does have sort of a fake buzzy saturation to it with the diode clipping in it. Now, I don't have any issues with diode clipping at all. I'm just saying it sounds a little bit more unnaturally compressed and a little bit more unnaturally saturated than something like a 2203 or 2204 does. And the amp also just seems to lack low end in general. Like, no matter how you set it up, I have the low end pretty much cranked at this point. I have a guitar that has a healthy low end, and I have a boost that lets me boost the 100 hertz in the low end, and it still just, you know, overall sounds thin in comparison to something like even a JMP 2203. Those amps have a lot of low end if they're healthy and they've got good tubes and you're pushing the volume, and this one just never really gets there. It always sounds a bit on the thin side for sure. So really pairing this thing up with the right cabinet, with the right boost and the right guitar, you're basically gonna want things that are going to fatten this amp up all around. You can get some good tones out of it, and I would be perfectly happy playing this amp in a lot of situations. However, it would definitely not be my first choice in the lineup of Marshall amps that are currently available. So with that being said, this I think was Marshall's second attempt at a 2-channel flagship amp, the first attempt being the 2205 and 2210 JCM 800s that came out in the mid to late 80s. And this one kind of just, you know, builds upon a similar thing where it's got 2 channels. One is a clean channel with reverb, the second is a distorted channel with reverb, and this model only has 1 gain knob, and there is no way to get the clipping out of the signal unless you modify the amp. So we have a stock one, and although it doesn't have the sticker on the front, this is the 5881 power tube version of the amp. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and dive into this thing and see if we can't get some good tones out of it, because I do think that there are good tones within this box. For that intro clip, I had my MXR M77 Badass Modified Overdrive on, and I am using my Balaguer Typhon with a Seymour Duncan distortion pickup in the bridge. So let's go, we're not even gonna go over to the clean channel. You know what, actually, yeah. Let's go to the clean channel, and let's see if we can get any sort of breakup tones out of this thing. All right, let's crank that preamp gain. Oh wait, wrong channel. There's 2 different preamp gains, one for each channel. Okay, still no breakup. Okay, so that kind of sounds somewhat like your typical Marshall breakup. Very, very light. Let's go ahead and crank it. Whew. Yeah, we're a little loud. Let's go ahead and pull that volume back just a tad. That's pretty bright. So let's pull that mid back a little bit of treble off the top. Seems to do the classic rock thing just fine. Yeah, it sounds okay for that. I mean, again, wouldn't be my first choice, but it definitely has those tones in the box on the green channel. If you wanted to use it as a dedicated clean channel, just roll the gain back. But with that gain cranked all the way up, can we roll the gain back on our guitar and get it clean? I would say so, yeah. I would say so. It's got a somewhat of a dynamic clean channel. You can roll your guitar volume back. And then if you wanted, we've got the gain all the way up. And it's fairly saturated. You could kick in a boost if you wanted to get even more into the hard rock territory. That all sounds fine to me. It's definitely on the bright side. With Marshall amps, traditionally, you want to roll the treble back and use the presence kind of as your overall brightness, or else you're going to stab yourself in the ears. That is at least my experience with this thing, or with these amps in general, and it seems to work pretty much across the board on every Marshall amp that I own and that I've tried. So kind of a tried and true method. But let's go over to the red channel, because you guys are not here for cleans and crunch. You're here for the belligerence. I'm gonna go ahead and put all of the EQ controls at noon here, and we're gonna back that gain down to 9 o'clock. I'm gonna turn this boost off, and let's see what we have on the red channel with these settings. All right, so right off the bat, it's pretty thin, pretty tinny, and I feel like the preamp gain really needs to be pushed to fill this channel out a little bit better. All right, so we are getting some saturation, but like I said, it's pretty bright up top. This amp in general has been known to be just overly bright and overly harsh on the top end, and you can definitely kind of dial that out, but it does take a little bit of work. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna leave the presence as is. Let's pull that treble back like I just said. Let's pull the bass up. And that seems pretty balanced to me. It's got a decent amount of low end. You're not gonna get that like sub low that you get from a more modern amplifier, but I don't think that most Marshall guys are going to be after that in the first place. So let's go ahead and push this gain up to about 2 o'clock. All right, so pushing that gain definitely thickens the amp up. Thickens with an F? I am not British. It thickens the amp up, and it definitely rolls off some of that high end. So we could actually introduce a little bit more high end into it, and let's go ahead and push those mids up just a tad as well. Honestly, that's a pretty solid sounding tone to me. That doesn't sound bad. All right, so with all that out of the way, That's the crunch and the hard rock tones. Let's go ahead and really push that gain on this thing. No boost in front, and see if we can kind of get into the thrash metal territory. And like pretty much any Marshall amp, it gets pretty tubby once you really start to push that gain hard, which is why having an overdrive definitely comes in handy. But let's see what we can do without that overdrive. Let's push those mids up. Let's get a little bit more high end. Let's roll that bass back, and let's pull that gain up just a little bit more. So still in that case, it's fairly clean overall. There's not a ton of saturation going on, and I really think that if you're gonna play the types of tones that people who watch my channel wanna play, which is thrash metal and hardcore, and even some guys modern metal, you're gonna wanna boost not only to tighten it up, but to increase the saturation. So let's go ahead and kick that MXR M77 back in, and let's see what we got by putting that in the signal. All right, so overall, definitely bright. We need some more low end for sure. Let's actually pull those highs back and up the presence a tad. It's still pretty bright like that, so I'm gonna pull those highs back even more. Let's pull the mids back a little bit too. Again, we really don't have too much in the way of low end going on right now. The amp is fairly loud, but it's definitely not crushing in the room. Let's push the volume of the amp a little bit more and see if that brings out some of the low end. All right, so more volume brings more low end, but it also brings more high end. So let's back that presence off a tad. Whew. Yeah, there's just a lot of high end harshness there. Back that treble down even more. That's not too bad. Let's go ahead and try a different overdrive. You guys seem to hate it when I use overdrives that you can't get your hands on, like the Deadwell Duality. So let's go ahead and use the Boss Wazacraft. Let's put it in the stock setting. This is pretty much a classic boost for a Marshall amplifier. So let's hear how this thing sounds on here. All right, so it definitely brightens the amp up a tad. Let's actually pull the middle back, let's pull the presence back, but let's boost that bass because the SD1 has always just kind of tightened up the bass of Marshall amplifiers in a really, really pleasing way. They add sonically to the amp in a pleasing way, but because this thing is so bright, you really have to be tame with it. I'm actually gonna pull the tone back just a tad too on the Overdrive. That sounds pretty good to me. Let's go ahead and turn that off. Let's kick in a TS9 just to give you guys one more boost that you're probably familiar with offhand. That's not bad either, but the TS9, the mids are always rounder on that pedal. So on an amp like a Marshall, when you push the gain, the low mids kind of start to get bloated. And if the pedal doesn't take out a lot of those low mids, it still sounds bloated. It sounds bloated to me is basically what I'm getting at. All right, guys, and finally, I've turned the TS9 off, and we are in D standard as opposed to E standard. Let's see how this amp handles a little bit of drop tuning. Not so good so far. Let's kick that SD1 back in because I thought that was sounding pretty good. All right, so a little better. Let's go ahead, push the gain. We're gonna pull the bass back a little bit. We're gonna up the presence and up the mids to kind of compensate for those lower frequencies. Man, we're just not getting enough saturation. Let's actually add a little bit of gain from the pedal and see if we can get it saturated. Honestly, that doesn't sound too bad, but it's really dry when you drop tune it. It just doesn't seem to handle the lower frequencies as well. A lot of that saturation kind of disappears, which I find really interesting. Let's try an EMG loaded guitar and see if that pushes the input of the amp anymore in a lower tuning, then we'll call it a day. All right, guys, I have my Solar E2.6, I believe, with an EMG 85 in the bridge. Let's see how this thing sounds. Drop tuned. Nothing else has changed. All right, guys, that is gonna do it for me today. Quick comment on the EMG. I do not think it sounds better than the Duncan Distortion did. It definitely brought out some weird harsh frequencies while also still sounding kind of muffled, and it didn't really seem to add much to the overall saturation of the amp. So with that being said, what did you guys think? Do you guys think that this thing can still handle metal here in 2022, or do you think that it should remain in the 90s and remain hated pretty much as it always has been since it's been introduced? Whatever way you feel about it, let me know down in the comments because I am very curious to see what you think, and I'll meet you down there to chat about it. If you want to support this channel and what it is that I do here, consider going into the description of this video where all my support links are. Click on my Sweetwater affiliate link, get yourself something nice from the fine folks at Sweetwater. I get a little kickback and it costs you nothing extra, and it greatly helps this channel move forward. Or consider adding your name to this list of very fine people by joining my Patreon community, and I will love you forever, whether you want me to or not. And finally, consider becoming a member of the Belligerent Amateur community by joining my Discord server and my Facebook group, all down below in the description of this video. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you liked the video, hit the like button on the way out, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Kyle here again. We'll see you guys next time.